Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Titans, as well as the latest episode of Van Helsing. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you don't want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Titans, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Van Helsing. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of Titans. A great episode, a lot of interesting things went down, so let's break it down. First and foremost, it's kind of interesting kind of having like the truth out there and everyone fully knows it now, because Dick ended up explaining it to everyone, because it turns out even like the OG Titans, Donna, Hank, and Dawn didn't know the full story, because the way Dick told the story, it's like, oh, by the time he got there to that spot, Deathstroke had already killed Jericho, kind of making it seem like, oh, he got killed because he was with us and his dad was pissed in the whole situation. But in actuality, he didn't tell them. It's like, oh, Jericho died trying to save me. Which obviously this hits everyone differently, because obviously the OG Titans are pissed because it's like, the fact of the matter is you told us half-truths. Rachel's pissed because it's like, well, you haven't been telling us the truth at all. Obviously, Rose is like, you killed my brother. And obviously, Jason's pissed because it's like, you do all this stuff. You try to act all high and mighty and like you're better than me. But the fact of the matter is you're just as much of a fuck up as I am. So I'm done listening to you. Bruce sent me here to listen to you. Why should I listen to you amongst anyone? So literally the Titans have fallen apart, and it's just, this group has broken down to the point, at the very least, there was some semblance of things being okay between them before they reunited as Titans. Them being separated was fine, being friends, associates at most was fine, but now it's like after rebuilding the Titans and kind of rebuilding it all on lies. Even those who thought they knew the truth, it was all on lies. So the only people left are Gar and Dick, which is interesting because obviously Rachel's leaving, but obviously Rachel's still dealing with her whole situation. But obviously because of this whole lying situation, she's never took the time to explain to Dick like, oh, what's happening to her, that she's kind of losing control of her powers and stuff like that. She hasn't really talked to him about that. The only people who know that are a few, and you know, she's even leaving Gar, because the last time her and Gar had a conversation, it turned into a whole like back and forth of them kind of getting pissed at each other, because like so much was based on lies. Like the fact is, Gar and Jason went off to, you know, deal with Dr. Light. Obviously, Rachel's not talking about what's really going on with her. So and that's the sad thing. It's not just like Dick that's lying in this regard. Like a lot of lies were kind of built and perpetuated, and so much was kind of built off of that. So we'll first of all, we'll run through Dick's side of the things, where it's like for him, it's like, well, the Titans are gone, but he decides to leave because for him, it's like there's nothing left here anymore, because the group that he thought of not only as his friends, but as his family, what he was trying to build there, it's basically all come burning down. You know, Corey tried to make him feel better by being like, they'll get over it soon enough. But the fact of the matter is, you told the truth, and that's all you can really do for now, you know? So he kind of basically after that, he continues his apology tour. He goes to Jericho's mom, which obviously, to be fair, in his defense, it's a whole complicated situation of like, yeah, he's the one that set the whole Jericho thing up and everything. And he has to explain that to his mom that like, yeah, I used your son and everything. But to be fair, you're the one that kind of pushed your, you know, hubby, you know, she basically pointed Slade in their direction and was like, give me my son back. So it's like, I guess she knew the entire time about like, you know, Deathstroke being the one that actually killed Jericho. That's where my mindset is, but maybe that isn't the case at all. Either way, I just thought it was kind of fascinating in the long run, you know. I don't know, because it's a complicated thing, because it's like, she's like, I'm all about forgiveness, but I can't forgive you for taking away, you know, my son, which once again, coming up in conversation, notice that this conversation continues to not have anything to do with Rose. That's why I'm like, yeah, there's definitely something up with that. That's why I'm kind of like, that can't be, like, obviously that could be his daughter from another person, but it's like even her whole backstory about like, oh, Jericho being a brother, like, I don't know. It just, I feel like her not coming up in any conversations at all. At no point is he like, oh, I want my daughter back. So either she's just crazy and thinks she's Slade's daughter, or like, obviously, I don't know what they're going to do with her story in this particular case. Once again, my own experience with this character is like, you know, and it's been such a long time, I don't remember, because she was played by, this particular character is played by Summer Glau in Arrow, but obviously I'm sure that's a different interpretation. So, I mean, you know, I just don't know what to kind of really make of it in a grand scheme of things. Regardless, it is this interesting thing of like, oh, if you're going to ask for, I can't give you forgiveness, but maybe they can. And that he walks over and it's like it's Slade that's there, and I'm like, whoa, what the hell does that mean? Where it's kind of like, oh, Slade's there, and it seems like what was interesting is him being like, oh, I destroyed your entire family. I got back at for what you did. Like you threw my family to the sea, so I'm gonna throw your entire family to the sea and stuff like that. And and I like what Dick says in response of like the fact of the matter, it's none of us deserved your son. He was better than all of us. Me and my friends is even better than you. You didn't deserve a son like that, and we didn't deserve a friend like him. But then he starts coughing, and I'm like, wait, is that why you picked? Because obviously it's like, oh, he picked this time to come after them because like, oh, the Titans are back and everything because of what Jason says. So I figured it was that. But maybe on top of that, it's because he was sick. Then now sitting here think about it. We learned what Jericho's powers were. They went out of their way to kind of bring that up. So now my mind's like, before Jericho died, he jumped his consciousness into Slade's head. Because remember what Jericho's mom said? She said, see if there was only one person in that room, and the fact is he's sick is probably because like two consciousness existing inside of that body like that might be too much, or maybe because the fact that she said they makes me think it's not even a situation of Jericho is like fully in there, and that because even when he takes over, because remember even with Hank was like, what the hell was that? He didn't necessarily remember, but it was there. So it's like either he's buried somewhere subconsciously, or maybe he's always in control, and maybe Slade is secretly there, which begs a question like everything that's happened. Was that Slade or was that Jericho? Is Jericho trying to exact his own revenge, or has his mind become corrupted by his dad's? Obviously, he's pissed at these people he once considered friends as well. Like that begs the question, And the fact is, his mom, like Jericho's mom, went out of her way to be like, oh, you need to leave now. I'm like, dude, something's up with that. That's where my mind said, I think that's what that's going to end up being. But we'll see. So Jericho's still alive in some shape or form. He probably just, because his body's dead, there's nowhere for his consciousness to go back to. Well, because if he ever did go back and leave Slade's body, which means he's been in Slade's head potentially for the past 5 years, maybe not. Like I said, we'll see in the long run what that all ends up being. So like I said, I just think that's kind of fascinating. So there's that side of things. And obviously, Dick still punishing himself. It's like, yeah, he screwed up and he messed up. And it's actually kind of something I was thinking about was kind of interesting. When you think about it in the grand scheme of things, it almost feels befitting because I feel like the Bat family is so solid, like always by themselves. I mean, that's coming from someone who's never read the comic books and stuff like that. But it just seems like it's almost a solitary life to be a part of the Bat family, because obviously that's something, came up in Batwoman this week about the whole thing of like, oh, balancing the double life. Bruce had the hardest time doing it, and obviously Kate's kind of learning how I have to adjust this to make it so I have to kind of cut a lot of people out of my life. I can't have special attachments because I'm always going to be lying to people. So I think being a part of that, I mean, I think this applies to superheroes, but I feel like you see it very prevalently with the Bats in particular. I mean, it seems like they're setting up to make it seem like all the Bats kind of deal with that. Even anyone in the Bat family, that includes, Dick in this case, of having that situation. But we'll kind of see. I thought it was kind of sad because Dick is trying to leave. He's going to the Netherlands. He's not even, because he made a promise to Guard, like, oh, I'm going to come back and everything, but he never does. And he was even going to leave. But for him, it's like, no, I don't get to just go off and just be by myself. It's like, no, that's not going to be paying for my crime. So he attacks some cops so he can get arrested, because for him, it's like, it's what Slade said about, oh, you can't, even begin, until like no forgiveness can even begin until you actually pay for your crimes. And so for him, it's like, that's his way to kind of, because it's something he's been carrying around for years. And it's just like, for him, it's like, this is the only way. I got Jericho killed. I deserve this punishment, which is like, like I said, you messed up big time. Yes. And even Gar was like, yeah, you messed up. But the fact of the matter is, it's just kind of, like you can't tell someone otherwise when they're punishing themselves like that, because he's not going to listen to anyone else, because all his conscience is, attacking him. And, even if he wants to alleviate his guilt on some subconscious level, the fact of the matter is that's just going to make him feel even more guilty on top of it. So that's, kind of sad to see things kind of play out like that. I'm curious if we're going to get Bruce reaching out to him like, Dick, what are you doing? Or is someone else going to? Because obviously, well, there's the whole Donna situation. Well, we got a little bit of that this episode, her and Rachel, where it's like, Donna was saying like, yeah, I can't believe he got that kid killed and stuff like that, which Rachel was like, yeah, but you all played your own part. You all made a choice to keep it secret, which she was like, yeah, because we thought what we were doing was for the best. And she's like, I know you did. And then Rachel just bails, and it's like, okay, so I guess for her it's like she can't be with anyone because I guess, it's like, I guess because she's kind of finding herself in a similar cycle with everything that's going on with her, so I don't think she's willing to be around other people right now. Maybe she feels like, well, because like being around Dick and Gar and Corey was kind of like the family, and now that family extended, and now all that's kind of based on lies, and that's all come crumbling down. So she probably feels like she doesn't have a place to call home anymore. So she's running off to be by herself, I guess. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that particularly turns out. On the flip side of things, Gar's looking after Titan's Tower because Dick left him in, charge. But now it's like, okay, so he's trying to keep positive and be like, no, Titans are going to come back. It took not even full 4 days for him to just finally just kind of almost give up hope. He's reading to Connor, who's still unconscious, and just, trying to be hopeful about trying to bring the Titans back together, but everything just doesn't happen immediately. And he thought, after all this time, it's kind of like, I guess there is no coming back. Maybe, he keeps saying it later on of like, when the Titans come back, we'll do this and that. But I'm thinking it's just him being super hopeful, that not just, because I'm sure there's a part of him in this open, like, maybe hopefully Rachel will come back. Dick said he's going to come back, so he'll come back, which we saw he had no intentions of coming back at one point. Maybe at the beginning he did, but maybe that was just another lie, so something seems like a terrible something that he seems to do a lot is what I was trying to say. So, but Connor's awake, and him and Gar kind of hit it off. I like that they kind of have like their bro moments this episode and everything. I even love him being like, yo, dude, it's like, nah, you're a hero. We're heroes. It's like, he's like, yeah, because you're Superman's son. And he's like, yeah, but I'm also Lex Luthor. So it's like, Gar's like, come on. We're not all perfect. We can't all be perfect. Which I also thought was kind of interesting because Dick was like, yo, when Connor wakes up, call Bruce. He'll get him in contact with Superman. So it's like, Bruce knows Superman, huh? Once again, it's that funny thing of like, oh, right, not everyone knows. That's probably something Rachel nor Gar knows. Probably Corey doesn't know either. Like, obviously the OG Titans know, but no one currently probably knows. I'm like, all right, Bruce Wayne is Batman. And so it's almost fun. It's that thing of like, how could you not piece that together? But it's like, right, you only know that because it's such a pop culture thing of like knowing that. It's like knowing that Darth Vader is Luke's father. It's like, because it's so like ingrained in your brain, you're like, no one else has known to figure that out. It's like, of course they would not. It's because, I mean, you can even make the argument the Bruce Wayne Batman thing is not even as clear cut as the Superman and Clark Kent thing, which even I've made a video talking about. You can make an argument about that whole Clark Kent situation and why that actually could work as a secret identity. Like, that's a tangent in its own. Like I said, I made a video talking about it if you were curious about it, but I'm not even going to promote it or something like that, which I just did. Ignore me. My BS. Getting back to the episode, I just think it was just kind of a neat little like Gar still has no idea what's up, and everything. But he's pushing Connor like, hey, taking him out there in the real world, being like, hey, the fact of the matter is, think of this as like a giant video game, because it turns out he's very good at the video game, because I guess a combination of Lex's mind plus having Superman's abilities kind of makes, hey, playing video games super easy. But at the same time, it's like kind of applying that into the real world. And obviously, he's still ignorant to a lot of stuff. It's like he knows certain things because of Lex's mind, but at the same time, he's still basically an infant. And so when he sees the police attacking the guy, it's like, oh, these are bad guys. They're attacking someone. Let me step in. He steps in. Gar doesn't really stop him. And obviously, when the other police show up to start shooting at him, he thinks about the people that attacked Lex's dad, and it's like, no, I got to handle this. And so he starts attacking all the other cops. And I think then there's a part of it, I think in those moments he was slipping into Lex, like Lex's evil side started kicking in, but then obviously he kind of snaps back and he runs away. So there's that. Obviously Gar is flipping out because it's like, holy crap, I screwed up big time. I was trying to do the right thing and it ended up blowing up in my face. And now Gar's kind of the only one left there to kind of deal with that. He's calling Dick for help, which we know Dick has been arrested. So there's that. There's a Hank and Dawn situation, which they're trying to get back to their old lives in Wyoming and everything. It's like, yeah, trying to pick up where things left off before this whole situation with Slade and Dr. Light came into play. But then when the time comes, like, they're out having fun and everything, and I love that they do that duet like that. I was like, holy shit, they're killing it. But then lo and behold, who do they run into? Ellis's sister, who blames him for everything, which even Hank tried to be like, yeah, but the fact is we helped him, we got him clean, what did you do? Like, the fact is trying to like make it so it's like the blame isn't just on us, you fucked up in your own regard. But for her, it's like, yeah, no matter what I did, you're the one that got my brother killed. So it's like, oh, basically watch your back because we're coming for you. What did you say to my brother all the time? All right, one day at a time. Which obviously this is coming at the worst time, because it's like the whole Ellis situation wasn't their fault. It was a super villain. Like, you can't do anything about that. It's just like a super villain that was trying to send a message. But obviously you probably can't go into all that. And even if you did, no one's going to really, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't undo the fact is that Ellis is gone and everything. And in her mind, it's like, oh, you're up here having la-di-da-da. What have you been doing? Singing your tits off, having fun. And it's like, no, they've been dealing with their own personal shit. But to her, it's not going to matter what you say. Like, she's never going to get her brother back because of you. And so it turns into that thing of like, okay, like, you know, that guilt is already there on top of what they already feel, because this whole trip down memory lane with the whole Jericho thing, like Dick feels the most guilty. But the fact, and that's also something I brought up last episode, I think Donna kind of feels the way she does too, because there is a part of her, like, I pushed for going down the route of revenge too. Like I said, more than Hank and Dawn, like Donna was the next one in line behind Dick, being all about like, nah, let's use this to our advantage. So I think you could make the argument, you know, I feel like she feels probably just as guilty as Dick, probably not nearly to the extent, but I feel like she's definitely next in line when it comes to the guilt. The others have it as well, but I feel like because those two were so adamant about going after Deathstroke, you know, going after Slade. So, and now it's that situation of, you know, Hank is like, I don't think we should be together, because it's like, what do? We cause nothing but pain anywhere we go, because literally our entire relationship was based on pain. We literally met through grief counseling. That's not the best way to start off any stable, normal relationship. You know, it's kind of like almost kind of like we met under those extreme circumstances. And even the fact of the matter is we beat people up saying it's for the greater of mankind or whatever. Oh, we're helping out humanity. We're saving people. It's like we beat people up basically to make ourselves feel better. It's our way to kind of displace our own pain. It's like making other people feel pain so we don't, you know. So, which obviously Dawn's like, nah, I don't believe that's kind of the antithesis that our entire relationship was based on. So for her, she looks at it as like, but it's like, that's the thing. We're two very damaged people. And it's like these two damaged people, we were there for each other in a time when we needed each other. We were going through so much pain. But I think at the same time, it's a thing of maybe there's more, rather than fixing and healing, all we've done is just stayed as damaged as we are, because we've just kind of like maybe potentially fed the damage in each other, even, you know, stopped in that actual healing process. We, you know, I guess the argument could be like they never actually dealt with their issues. They just, like I said, they felt like inflicting pain, like, you know, rather than actually dealing with it. That's how I potentially look at it. So I think that's kind of an interesting. So like I said, there's fallout from this whole Jericho situation, you know, because for him, it's like, the fact is we could have gone anywhere, but we came back here. The fact of the matter is I wouldn't be anywhere here. And she's like, fine, we can literally go anywhere as long as we're together. But it's like us being together might be the issue, you know? So I just thought that was kind of a fascinating situation. Like maybe there shouldn't be any Hank and Dawn. Maybe we should go our separate ways, which Hank leaves and we see that he's kind of spiraling because he goes to get a drink. He's at a bar, but he orders a Diet Coke. I'm like, oh, he's about to order a drink. But it's like, no, he has like someone nearby him's like, where do we get some real shit? So it's like he's about to start spiraling. I'm sure Dawn's off on her own, which there's a whole complicated thing of like, well, I'm sure those people are serious about coming after you, but to be fair, they're well trained. That's going to turn into that thing of like, depending on the numbers and stuff like that, they have weaponry and stuff. You can handle your own, sure, but things will still get messed up and super messy. So that complicates things on that front. The other side of things is everything with Corey and Fide, because it's like, oh, it turns out Blackfire has ascended the throne. Oh, and all the people that would have been on your side, yeah, she killed them. Sent people to come kill me too. So what are we going to do? We probably might, if you're not going to go back, you know, you might as well run. You know? And it's like, it's so sad because their reunion is so short-lived because Blackfire ends up possessing Fide, which you kind of figured as much the moment he started saying stuff, making excuses for her. So I was like, I was wondering if it was like an alien or someone that was working for her. It's like, no, it was straight up her possessing him, because it's like, oh, she's making such a point about all the bad stuff. It's like, yeah, you're like, oh, couldn't we, basically saying like, oh, couldn't we put the past behind us and we could rule together type of thing of like, at least that's what she was trying to get Fide to say and stuff like that, which you could tell by Corey's responses that she was leaning into. I was like, yeah, she was kind of saying some asshole thing, because I think it's funny because it seems like Starfire kind of pushed her sister, because it almost seems like her sister's always kind of pushed hard like the way she does. So I guess maybe in her own defense, it's just kind of like a sibling thing, you push back a little bit. So I guess Corey's always kind of done her thing of like pushing Blackfire a little bit, but I think it's because Blackfire has always been kind of the more extreme. I mean, I just think it's interesting because you compare this to the original Teen Titans cartoon, which I don't know if this is true to who they are in their comic books, but obviously like Starfire was a bully. She was an asshole. Like, especially because she went out of her way to be like, oh yeah, Starfire, calling her something in the Tamaranian language that basically means nothing, and that was always a misunderstanding in the episode. It's like, oh no, it's like, oh, it's not that it means nothing. It means literally nothing. It means you're calling someone nothing, that they have no worth, and the Titan's like, whoa, we didn't know she was calling you something that entire time. Why didn't you say anything? So like I said, I think Starfire probably always like pushed back against, Blackfire, just because it's like, because I had to, because otherwise you were just an asshole who just kind of kept pushing me and putting me down type of thing. Well, we don't know the full scope of the relationships. They did inadvertently, I mean, it's like because it took her, because it seems like she holds on to the small things, like, oh, remember how you made fun of her hair? It's like, really? A normally sibling thing, and that's what you hold on to amongst anything? And that explains where you are right now and the things that you're doing. So that's why I think it kind of showed you Blackfire's mindset of maybe like the fact that she holds on to the smallest things just to be like, see, I'm justified in what I'm doing. It's like, or maybe it's just supposed to prove the point of like, nah, I might not be good, but come on, sis, you've done some shit too. Yeah, I've made fun of your hair one time. Yeah, a normal sibling thing to do. And she probably did mean it in a lighthearted way, but Blackfire probably, well, because it seems like we learned a little bit that Blackfire's and Starfire's parents were kind of always like, Starfire was a cherished child. Blackfire was kind of literally the black sheep of the family. So growing up with that, Starfire kind of being the star, I think you create a little animosity, which that animosity is going a long way to her ruling, and everything. So that just, gets complicated, as we'll just kind of leave it as. But it's sad that Starfire had to kill Fide because of that. And he was like, do it, because if she didn't, Blackfire probably would have used him to fight, if not straight up kill I mean, it would have eventually turned into that, because Starfire has no intentions of working with her sister. So it's like she ends up having to kill Fide, literally one of the few people probably on Tamaran that she cares about anymore, especially because they have the history that they do. So basically her sister is basically like, oh, the fact of the matter is, because it came down to the thing of like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to work with your sister, or are you going to fight? Which she made it, Corey made it clear, I'm a fighter, so I'm planning on fighting. So it's like, I'm coming for you, sis. Which she was like, yeah, I'm kind of betting on that. So Starfire's got her own little war to wage, which is interesting, while everything else is going. It seems like where everything kind of stands, everything's kind of settled when it comes to this Deathstroke thing. But because at this point, everyone's dealing with their own personal demons at this point. So I'm kind of curious to see how they kind of circle that all back together. But maybe even Corey can ultimately get the Titans' help in figuring out this whole Black Star thing. Maybe, maybe not, because she does have to find a way off the planet. Because not only her ship was destroyed, so was Fide's. Maybe there's enough of her to... because the way he made it sounded like it kind of got burned to pieces, so there might not be enough of left to do anything with. But ultimately, we'll have to just wait and see ultimately where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Van Helsing. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. It's always interesting when Van Helsing does these type of episodes where it's like, rather than bouncing between different stories, it's just one set of stories. Kind of basically one location. I mean, it's kind of hard to really say that, but it's just kind of interesting, like, because every season has at least one or two episodes where it's just kind of focused on one specific character doing one specific, set of things. But regardless, we have Phil and Axel chasing after Max, and he still has Jennifer and Owen. It's interesting because they enter a vampire territory, which is so weird because these are regular vampires. Apparently daywalkers haven't gone this far, which is so weird because we've dealt with daywalkers since like last season, partially season 2, but mainly it's a season 3 thing. And I want to say the last of the like regular vampires we ever saw in the series was Sam. I think he was the last one because he never actually got bit by a Daywalker. He became the last elder, and that made him the way he was. Prior to that, I'd say I want to say Felix might be the last regular vampire we ever saw during the show. Technically, him and Muhammad were like the last ones. I don't know if there's been any that have subsequently popped. So it was weird seeing like, whoa, they actually have to cover up and stuff. I was like, that seems so foreign now at this point in time. But it's interesting because Phil had talked about the fact is like, oh, they put other feeders out there to burn in the sun, which is further thing of like, wow, vampires dying by sunlight. That seems like forever ago, which is so weird to say that considering it was only like a season or so ago that vampires became immune to the sun and stuff. Like I said, it's just kind of interesting, but yeah, also shows you, because you would assume by this point, like literally every vampire in existence is a Daywalker. You would assume that, but I guess it's because this is like their territory, so they don't fuck with vampires, or maybe it just really hasn't reached that far out. Whatever the case may be, I just thought that was fascinating. And it's like certain, and apparently Phil was like Julius would do the same thing where he'd kill certain feeders, basically put them out there in the sun to be like a warning of like, yo, this is our territory, stay the hell out. So they're going after, all these vampires are attacking them, turning into like a fit. It's so interesting to see, like I brought this up last episode. It's so interesting because this is a pairing we've never solely gotten. Now we've got like Phil and Axel working together like that. Axel blowing the vehicle up, which is like, oh man, that kind of sucks, But I guess it's like, he could never keep the love of his life because wasn't the first one called Wanda? Wasn't that her name? It wasn't Wanda, was it? I don't remember. The one from the hospital. It never works out. Like they've always got to be, sacrificed in the end. But yeah, I mean, he's had that one since last season when he met up with those. No, when him and when they ended up leaving him alone, it was before they ended up on that island that they met Jacob Van Helsing, that whole situation. Regardless, it's just so interesting to see that kind of go. And it's also that thing of just like the whole rapid healing thing is still kind of trippy because it's just kind of like explosion and Phil kind of gets up, he's healing, he's like, what did I miss? It's just like, it's so casual now and stuff. I love that. But also I love everything with Max. Once again, it's Richard Harmon, so I'm losing my shit because I'm like, Murphy! Because I love him so much as Murphy on the 100, so it just, I feel so bad for him because I feel like he gets typecast a lot. He gets typecast as douchebags. A lot of characters he plays are assholes. Murphy, borderline's an asshole. He has redemption arc, but Max, not so much. But I love that being a thing of like, well, why is he keeping Jennifer and Owen alive? Because it would be so much easier just to lead them, but it's like, okay, later on we kind of find out because basically they're basically trying to cross, and in this territory you need to pay a toll, that being blood. You pay enough of a toll, they let people by, so there's that whole situation. So that's why he was keeping Jennifer and Owen alive, which that Owen kid is kind of interesting. I wonder will anything ever come about that, just because like it's like him and Jennifer in the car, it's like, oh no, let's get a chance, we'll be okay, and it's like Owen's like, we need to kill that guy. And he's like, shh. She's like, shh, I know, honey, I know. We'll get to it. And even the whole thing of like, okay, she's waiting for Max to get back in the car. I'm like, why didn't you drive away? Oh, because Max isn't stupid because he took the keys with him. I was like, oh, that's smart. I even love the fact that they put the seatbelts on and he was like, yeah, take the seatbelts off. It's like, I'm not stupid. I'm like, oh, that's pretty smart. You might get high a lot. You might seem like a bumbling idiot, but you're actually really smart at this. Plus, but it's also interesting because he's spending all this time getting high. I also love, we did get an explanation because I was wondering, I was like, how did he end up the way he does? Like, not unless Vanessa or Scarlett ended up healing him or something, but it's like we kind of find out a little bit of his backstory later on. But I was like, maybe it's something blue, sniffing the blue stuff. It's like, no, he's literally in the same exact situation as Axel and Phil. He was a vampire, he got cured, and then eventually got bit by a daybreaker, a Daywalker. It turns out, interestingly enough, he was turned by Dimitri himself, which is like, wow, we have not heard that name in a long time. But apparently, he basically got turned back during season one's finale / season two's premiere, where it's like the rebellion on the Citadel. That's where he ended up getting turned back. So he's been human for a little while. So that was interesting. And I guess because of his whole party nature, it kind of fit very well with him being a vampire. But regardless, like I said, it was some interesting circumstances of just kind of like he's in this position where he can't do anything because he needs them, so he can't straight up kill them. And I love Jennifer threatening to smash his drugs, and she's telling Owen to run. And it's like, okay, if you send your son out there, he's most likely going to die. So can you live with that? So she's like, stop. And he's like, oh, see? And he's like, you're lucky I need you alive. And she's like, oh, thanks for telling me that. And she just slaps the drugs out of it and they smash on a rock. I love that. It's just the timing of it was so perfect because she just went slam, knocked it out of his hand. I was like, that's pretty damn good. It's like Jennifer's super badass. Her and Owen are pretty badass because it's like, it's like they stayed calm under pressure. But I guess like Jennifer did admit, she's like, yeah, when you don't know what I've been through to get to where I am right now to kind of stay alive. So it's like, so pretty damn tough. I didn't talk about it, but it kind of ties into this because it's like, it was something where it's like Axel was like, yeah, they've survived this long, showing you that they are not going to be taken down so easily, so that, you got to have faith that they're still alive and everything. Because even Phil was like, why are you going above and beyond? It's like, wait, you go, like he brought it up last time. It's like, I'm not going to stop until I find him. It's like, yeah, that's right. And it's like, he couldn't understand why Axel was so, like, intent on helping him going as far as he did. He even asked him, why didn't you help us the first time? Which obviously Axel was going through some personal shit at the time. And obviously it was connected to anything that reminded him of Scarlet and the whole Vanessa thing. He wanted to cut ties because it just would have been a reminder. It would have been easier just to give into his despair and rage. But he's like, nah, I'm here to make things right, so... And what's interesting, and I didn't even think about this when the pairing got started the other episode. Right. Phil knows exactly what Axel is going through. It's like, right, because it's like, well, not just because of his children, that angle to it too, but literally the same thing with Lucky. I was like, right, I completely let that slip my mind. I was like, yeah, he literally lost a person that he also can. I mean, once again, like you can tie in his children, but also like the Lucky situation, which she was also pregnant too, so that adds a whole other layer to the whole situation. But it's like he can understand the pain. It's like the fact of the matter is the pain does kind of go away. Because for Axel, it's like he doesn't fear death. Now living, that's a whole other question. That's the whole problem. It's like it's easy for him. It's like death doesn't scare me, but like actually living right now does after everything that they've been through. So, but circling back to it, they end up stopping for rest. Max and them. And I love that Owen kind of sneaks off, grabs the gun, and ends up... And I love that creepy thing of, like, looking to the gun, back at Max, like the way the camera was, and then the camera zooms back up, and Max's eyes are open. Owen they go for the gun. Owen grabs the gun and shoots him in the neck. He's like, bleh. He's like, he shot me in the neck. I don't know why, like, I think maybe because I have a bit of a twisted sense of humor, I kind of laughed at that a little bit because it's just an interesting situation. It's kind of sad and ironic at the same time. This almost a similar thing is happening to Phil and Axel, where they're being, they got spears thrown into them and they're being chopped at by the vampires. It's actually interesting because they don't really bring this up too much, but obviously it comes up every once in a while, the different vampires. Because in season 2, there's vampires we have never circled back to. What was their name? And maybe because all of them are dead now, but what were they called? They literally peeled the skin off of humans and kind of wore it. I think they were called just skinwalkers, right? So there's them, like obviously there's the section, the sisterhood. And now there's this breed. So, like, it's something they slowly introduce. It's never, like, a big thing, but usually it's, like, a one-off thing. The Sisterhood is the only group of vampires they've made note. But I guess it's kind of interesting because obviously the Sisterhood kind of ties into, like, the overarching thing, everything with the Dark One and stuff like that, because one of their mother is, Michaela, one of, the Dark One's bride, so it kind of makes sense in the grand scheme of things, but still. I just think that's just kind of interesting. But yeah, they're trying to like get blood, and it seemed like they almost had a bit of a Joker thing. It looked like almost like their jaw was broken, that one in particular. And Axel's like, "What the hell are you?" So, getting free, killing him. So, like I said, some interesting circumstances. Even Axel letting himself get shot. It's like at first I was like, "Oh, is a headshot gonna be?" I was like, I keep forgetting. It's like, right, literally, Phil has shot himself in the head. It's like, no, it's all good. So. And obviously, because Max didn't know about Axel at all, so he was kind of a bit of a surprise. Then there's Max's friend, Maddie. And it turns out, okay, so Maddie exists in that, like, territory, but he's good with the vampires because he supplies them with blood. Fatty blood, and we kind of find out later on what that is. Basically, he captures humans. He basically pumps them, like, he literally makes them eat and consume a shit ton of blood, and I guess blood on top of blood, and just kind of engorges them, and then you take that blood out. It's like, oh, it's super... I don't know if that's something you could actually scientifically, would that actually do anything, but... That's what fatty blood is. I'm like, oh, that's such an interesting little concept to kind of throw in there. Now, whether that's actually going to be another thing or not, this is because when you actually think about it, this episode is very Hills Have Eyes-ish, which is interesting to kind of reference that franchise because it's not something I'm that familiar with. I remember bits of the second one. I remember bits of the first one. But I mean, it's just like hillbilly zombies. Well, not necessarily zombies, but like some hillbilly mutations. It kind of reminds me of that, the whole Maddie situation and just like the twisted shit. I don't know, I guess on some level it kind of reminds me of like, not necessarily Saw, maybe House of a Thousand Corpses or something. I don't know, I wouldn't know. It's some weird, disturbing shit. Luckily, they were able to get to Home Dude in time. I mean, get to Jennifer in time, which I love. They're like, oh, this guy's a sick, like Axel and Phil were standing there and just Jennifer just like pops him in the head. Even Axel and Phil are standing like, oh. Like, okay, like I said, Jennifer don't freaking play. So, obviously, they're tracking down Max. And I love the situation kind of ending the way it does. I actually kind of felt bad, once again, because it's Richard Harmon. But, yeah, it was only going to end one way. Because Phil was like, yo, when it comes down to Max, let me get him. And he does. He chops his head off. And Axel's like, yeah, that's pretty good. See you in hell, Max. And which Phil was like, no, that's too good for him. So, I also love that... Jennifer was like, oh, don't look, but Owen turned his head to actually look, because I guess for him it's like, I guess in his 8-year-old mind, yeah, cause, well, isn't it like 8 or something like that? Regardless, in his kid mind, he's like, fuck Max, in that regard, but it was interesting. I'm drawing, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of getting caught up in the thought about everything. Once again, kind of going back to just how crafty that kid is, because Max couldn't find the keys, but I guess he didn't realize in that struggle, like, Owen had gotten him, and not only had he gotten him, he had snuck them in his socks, and it's like he's had the keys the entire time. It's like, wow, that kid is pretty, like, crafty and smart, so that was pretty dope. I also kind of feel bad for Max, because, like, well, you get stabbed in the leg, and then you get shot in the leg, and then, Phil proceeds to chop your head off, and that's pretty gnarly. So it's interesting because there's like I said, the whole conversation with Phil and Axel about the whole, because Phil brings up once again his children of like, eventually the pain goes away, but obviously my kids, they're always with me. So even if they're gone, there's still a piece of them that kind of exists with me, which, kind of acts as a double-edged sword for him, because obviously he killed his kids. So, that's kind of a tough thing too, but at the same time, it's like you do carry them with you, so trying to tell him that the pain will eventually, subside. But for Phil, he's like, yeah, this is the end for me. I'm not going to, like, I'm going to look after Owen and Jennifer, which Jennifer does confirm. It's like, get back our son, and you see Phil pausing him. I'm like, oh, so he is ours. But it's like, okay, so what are you going to do, Axel? He's like, I'm going to get back in a fight, which... I think eventually at some point he's probably going to circle back, either meet up with Jeremy and Jolene and kind of help her track down Dot, or maybe track down Vanessa, or at the very least, it's like he helped this group of people, so maybe he helped out Phil and everything. Maybe he'll go out and help other people, but either way, this is them kind of saying goodbye and stuff like that. It's like, it's crazy to think about. Like, obviously Phil wasn't 100% there at the beginning, but in the confines of the series, technically he was, because obviously he's been human for a while, but he goes all the way back to the hospital. So it's so interesting what they set this up. I don't know whether this is legitimately going to be like Phil's exit from the story, because I mean, it might be a thing of like, maybe we'll circle back to see what he's up to, because I feel like with his circumstances, him being kind of a part of all this, him being what he is now, it's kind of like, you got a big role in all this. But hey, maybe not. Maybe it's just kind of like, hey, he goes off in the sunset, looks after his family, and that's all there is to it, though. It is kind of neat that it's like, oh, you know, it's like, hi, Owen. Like, in fact, you could call me Phil. Gave him back his a rabbit or toy that he had left behind. And, you know, even Jennifer being like, okay, like, despite everything that's going down, she sees that Phil isn't who he was before. And if fact is that she is willing to give him a chance with this whole situation. I'm like, okay, me and Owen will go with you. So what's next for their story? I don't know. Like I said, this could, I mean, the way they workshop it like that, make it seem like this could be an exit, but it could just be a thing of like, oh yeah, eventually we'll circle back around to see what Phil is up to. But like I said, I'm also curious to see where Axel's going to end up after all of this. So like I said, I think it's so interesting when they do very like isolated stories like this. So which all makes me very curious to see where things are going next episode, because I feel like next episode is going to be like a little more putting us back on main course. This is kind of side quest level stuff. I think we're going to get back to main plot stuff maybe next episode, but regardless, it's definitely interesting to see where we all go as this chapter closes, and obviously other chapters continue on. So we'll see where the next episode takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live like the divorce, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.